Fences can keep two herds of cattle separate from one another.
But the price of some fences is extraordinarily high.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you for tuning in today. We're so very glad you've joined us. We look forward to these discussions around this table. You've heard from two of the panelists. You haven't heard who they are yet or what they do. So at this time, I'd like for our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
My name is Bishop Michael Olson, and I serve as the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
My name is Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I serve as senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington, District of Columbia.
I want to thank everyone for joining us here on the panel today. Looking forward to the discussion. I know you have busy lives elsewhere, but thank you for taking the time to be here for today's program. In the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 9, verses 49 and 50, John proudly told Jesus that he had tried to stop someone who was casting out demons in the name of Jesus because, quote, he is not one of us. Jesus admonished John, do not stop him, for whoever is not against you is for you. In 1914, just as World War I broke out and troops began crossing national borders or walls, the American poet Robert Frost wrote an evocative poem entitled Mending Wall. Frost's poem acknowledged that walls have their place, especially as those on both sides walk alongside one another. On the one side, the man raised questions regarding the need for their common wall. On the other side, the man simply stated, good fences make good neighbors. At such times, walls can make good neighbors. Nevertheless, walls or fences can become unnecessary obstacles, especially when they come between those who are thought to be friendly neighbors. Given our turbulent debates over the appropriateness of building a wall or fences between the U.S. and Mexico, we ask our panelists today to consider the following questions. First of all, should the admonishment of Jesus not to stop those who are for us have any relevance to the present debate surrounding the building of a wall or putting up of fences? Number two, how can faith communities influence the current debate? And finally, will building such a wall really make Americans and Mexicans better neighbors? That is our subject for today, and we're going to ask our panelists to dig into this. We'll go back to those who helped to begin the program with opening statements, and for that, we go back to Bishop Olson. Welcome to the program, and tell us a little bit more of your thoughts on the subject.
My opening cliffhanger was, fences can keep two herds of cattle separate from one another, and that is true, and it's important. However, cattle are not human beings, and that's a very important distinction in this. And in the current debate, as far as fences making good neighbors, that requires that it's good neighbors who put the fence up for good purposes, for the intent of making good neighbors. And I think so much of the argument regarding a wall is based on a naive stance in this way, that somehow a wall is going to resolve our problems of immigration, they're going to resolve our problems of crime, it's going to resolve our problems of having to deal with people who are not ourselves. And I think that that's not going to lead us to any resolution whatsoever, and will probably, in fact, aggravate and make things worse. This is not to say that a wall cannot be put up, or fences or border security cannot be improved, because it can. Improved in the sense of protecting us from crime and its onslaught, but that also requires cooperation between nations in addressing criminal activity. Things like the drug war and what's going on with the drug trafficking and human trafficking requires nations and leadership among nations and also non-government organizations to pay attention to those needs. But a wall or a fence in itself is not going to resolve the issue.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Plumley. Welcome to the program. Further thoughts on your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I began by saying that fences cost too much. The example that Bishop Olson was speaking of there toward the end of his opening remarks is a primary example. We have seen the government shut down. We have seen racism rise. We have had a blow to our self-image as a nation. We have encountered a horrendous set of activities in separating children from their parents and so forth that have just created an incredibly high cost for that particular wall. Let me talk about walls in general, though. Think of two biggies, two big walls. I guess the third might be the Berlin Wall that the destruction of which we celebrated so much about 30 years ago. But the two I was thinking of were the Great Wall of China, which is the only man-made thing on this earth that you can see from outer space, and yet it did not ever protect China. It certainly does not now. It did not in the age in which it was built. The other wall that I think of is one that I've seen several times. The wall that Israel has built around the Palestinian territories, which has created or added to feelings of racism. It has hurt the self-image not only of the people being kept out of Israel, but the self-image of the nation of Israel itself. It has created all sorts of difficult situations, not particularly adding to the security or safety of either Palestine or Israel. Then I think of just all sorts of ways that we build walls and fences between ourselves, whether it's languages, whether it's religions, whether it's denominations, even the clothing that we wear, we use to identify ourselves as part of some group or another. Ghettos, ethnicities, even freeways. The places where we build our freeways usually are chosen with at least some mind to separating certain parts of cities. And cities, or at least cities, need to recognize the dynamics of where they choose to build such things. There are all sorts of ways that human beings have chosen to make borders around themselves. And our faith, however, Christian faith, however, I think is all about tearing down walls. When we see our Lord Jesus in his day-to-day life, he reached across walls and barriers to put women at the center of his ministry in many ways, to reach out to the poor and to the blind and to those who had leprosy and those who were on the bottom of the social scale, and also to Romans. I think that any Christian conversation about walls and fences needs to take every effort to count all of the cost that is involved in building the wall.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Trovall, what is your take on this subject, please?
I don't think that Jesus' words here that in the moderator's statement have any relevance at all to the debate. Because to me, I suppose in the sense of that we need to be open to other people, that's true. It is applicable there. But honestly, this is a geopolitical issue between the United States and Mexico. I hope that all of our listeners know already that there were many people who were living in the area of Texas and California and Colorado, and through an act of military will, the United States moved the border to where it is right now and basically forced people to be citizens of the United States against their will through the use of that border. And the other thing is that, secondly, the wealth tends to go wherever you take wealth from, people tend to follow it. And so wherever wealth is, people tend to go where there's wealth. That's where human migration moves toward. We have a tremendous amount of poverty in Mexico. We have a tremendous amount of wealth here. I don't know why anyone should be surprised that there's an attempt for human migration moving here. Not only that, on top of it, so, we have the drug issue. We have an insatiable appetite for drugs in our country. We create precisely the need that creates the market which we're trying to stop. And the other issue is we also have an insatiable desire for cheap labor as well. And this is another thing that's provided so easily from Mexico. What I'm getting at is that these are really some really highly complicated social, economic, political problems. And to me, this idea that somehow a wall is going to magically, you alluded to that, Michael, that a wall is going to kind of magically stop things. Yeah, we need protection on our border. Borders need to be porous. It needs to go back and forth for healthy trade, healthy development. But this is a frustrating discussion for me because having lived on the border, to me, it's about the appropriate use of resources to specifically address what specific problem you have, whether it's drug trafficking, whether it's finding an immigration policy where people can immigrate so we can solve our labor needs and Mexico can have people migrate also safely. There's, anyway.
Okay.
I despair because I
Sure.
really believed when I lived on the border in Laredo, I saw so much cooperation, I saw so much healthy things happening, and I really thought that we would come to a point of having some sort of stable immigration policy with Mexico that would be beneficial to both nations. But we have now, we don't talk in the way that we need to be talking.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Luxton, your take, please.
I think that walls and fences, yes, they're physical, but there's also a lot of symbolism attached to them. And I think that always complicates the conversation. It's not just about a physical barrier, it's about a barrier that's much deeper than that. I think you saw that in reverse if you just watch what happened with the pulling down of the Berlin Wall, and people just on both sides just grabbing pieces of that wall and pulling it down. Because they didn't want a wall. In a sense, what they wanted was a bridge, and I think that's another analogy. If we look at two symbols here of fences and walls on one side and a bridge on the other, I think both of those have rich symbolism about how we should be relating to others around us. Yes, sometimes there might be a need for a physical wall, but I think that concept of can we build bridges is very important too. And what does that mean symbolically, not physically? Symbolically, what does it mean to build a bridge? What does it mean to communicate with another community, in this case Mexico, and say, okay, how can we make this work? The kind of things you were talking about, Carl. How can we actually have a win-win for both communities, recognizing there's something that probably we both want to stop, that we both want to control? How can we actually do that through bridge building rather than fence building? Because as soon as you start the fence talk, you isolate, you push someone to the other side. And I'm not sure that that is really the most helpful way of solving problems.
All right, thank you. Dr. Matthews, your take on this, please.
Yes, this is a topic that I grapple with this topic. It is because having traveled out of the country to far lands with people who really would love to come back to the United States. I remember being in Ecuador, and there was a Colombian refugee just wanted to come back to the United States. And I wish, you know, the Christian part of me and the compassionate part, I just wish we could bring everyone who wants to come here, because this is a land of opportunity. We have liberty, and it's just a great country. And the other side of me, and I know I'll probably get pushback from people, because whenever you ask questions related to the fence or the wall, however you want to phrase it, you know, animosity kind of boils up. So I have more questions. Basically, I mean, is it really realistic for us to think that everyone who comes to the border can cross over? I mean, I wish we can bring them in, but wow, is it realistic? Is that a realistic thing? If they did come, could we house them? I think these are questions that we just have to ask. These are hard questions, tough questions. I had an opportunity to listen to the acting chief patrol agent just a little while, months ago. And he said, basically, he's at one of the sectors at the Rio Grande Valley, and his response to some of the questions related to the border crossing, they're just chilling. I mean, and he said it's not the economic migrants, the people who are really wanting to get here for better living. It's the cartel. It's he mentioned the 80 pounds of cocaine coming into the country, 40,000 pounds of marijuana. Now, folks may be really happy about that, but you know,
yes.
But it's a major problem. Major problem. More questions than answers.
Thank you. Cannon Peterson.
Yes, I want to approach this discussion, and every time I think about this discussion, I think about Jesus' first sermon in Nazareth, in the synagogue in Nazareth. But I also want to be able to support what Tom said in relationship to Jesus and walls, Jesus and fences, because Jesus' first disciples came from outside the land. Bethsaida was beyond the River Jordan. And Jesus went outside the land to appoint his first disciples. And I think, if anything, that should be a clue for us on the hospitality and the generosity that Jesus had. And full stop. Jesus' first sermon in Nazareth. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he's anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Using Jesus' sermon as the foundation stone, the one thing I'm quite sure of is that Jesus would not be pleased with what he is seeing today at our southern border. For that matter, I believe Jesus weeps when he sees children being separated from their mothers and their fathers. I am sure that Jesus is pleased when any country who has asylum laws that permit the persecuted and the oppressed to be able to enter into that country as a result of persecution in their own home country, Jesus smiles.
You've got about 10 seconds for this segment.
Jesus weeps.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry we are out of time for this segment. Went by fairly quickly, but appreciate the discussion so far. There is time for summations in just a few moments, but before that, I'd like for you to stand by for this important message. We'll be back in a moment.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you. Again, I'm glad you've tuned in for today's program. If you'd like to see past programs, they're at the website for the American Religious Town Hall Meeting. You'll find archived programs. We hope that you'll tune into those. And then also, as Mark has suggested, drop us a line. Let us know what you'd like to see discussed on the panel and what your comments might be even about today's program. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's go to our summations. Let's begin with Bishop Olson.
When it comes to discussion over the wall, over whether to build a wall or to what extent we build a wall between us and our neighbors, particularly Mexico, I think we have to ask ourselves, why do we want to do it, and what are we trying to resolve with it? And does it really help us to achieve what we need to do? Likewise, the absence of a wall should not mean advocacy for just simply open borders without any sort of respect for national integrity.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Dr. Matthews.
Yes. We really hope that the wall, the fences, the security at the border can be solved. And we're just calling on all of those who symbolically had the sign at the border, help wanted but no trespassing, would get on the job and solve this problem.
All right, thank you. Dr. Trovall, your summation.
Nations have a right to establish their boundaries and to protect them in the way that they see fit. And the United States certainly has that right. I just hope that as we contemplate this, that I'm not advocating open borders at all, but what I am advocating is that we have a coherent immigration policy and the ability to actually apply and enforce that immigration policy in a way that we are concerned about justice and the safety and the health of our nation, and also in ways that would be helpful also to our neighbors in Mexico.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Canon Peterson, your summation.
Certainly, I don't think that anyone on this panel today was saying that we should not have security. And I think that the debate in this country today is, what is security? And that is the security simply a wall, or is security much more sophisticated in relationship to being able to have the newest of equipment to be able to detect when people are indeed breaking in, quote unquote, our borders? I'd like to read one sentence from Robert Frost. I'd like to ask and to know what I was building in or walling out.
All right, thank you very much and for your participation today. Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I can't get beyond some of the words that Bishop Olson used when he started this conversation for us, and that was those words were that in order for a wall to create good neighbors, it must be built with good intentions, and I think that we have to ask ourselves about our intentions as we approach this issue. And we need to count the cost, because the cost is extremely high.
All right, thank you very much. And then Dr. Luxton, your summation, please.
I think everyone has said the same thing, that we can't be in a position where everything is open and everyone can just move to and fro without any control. there are problems. There are problems with drugs and so on. But the question is, and it's very easy to judge from a distance as well. But there seems to be enough debate out there to say, well, have we just made a gut reaction and said, this is going to solve it, right? Without really truly saying, again, you know, what I think I'm repeating what other people have said, but is that really going to achieve what we want to achieve? Because what we want to achieve at the end of the day, in my mind, it probably has to be two things. First of all, yeah, we want to solve some of the problems, but we also want to be good neighbors, right? So how do you achieve both at the same time? And that seems to me to be the conversation that needs to be around the table. And maybe when only one neighbor is in that conversation, maybe that also causes some of the problems. You know, you really need both neighbors in the conversation in order to kind of really. So in Robert Frost, they're talking to each other, right? Yeah. They're talking across the wall to each other. So there's some kind of sense of why we're doing this. Yes, this is good. Yes, this is good for you. It's also good for me, and this is what we're both going to win on this situation. I think that's the right way to do it.
All right, thank you very much. This has been a very interesting and perhaps enlightening discussion we've had around the table today. And again, I want to thank each panelist for taking time from their busy schedules to be here to meet around this table. And again, to you for tuning in. The program would be nothing without you tuning in. We'd have a nice conversation here, but we like to include you on the conversations that we have here from week to week. Agree or disagree, that's part of what the program is about. The beauty of it is we can come here, state our cases, express our perspectives, and have a civil discourse, a discussion about matters that are important not only to us around the table, but to you, the viewer, and your neighbors as well. So thank you again for tuning in. We look forward to hearing from you. Again, I will suggest that you go to the website. There you can find the archive programs. There are some similar to this one, maybe not exactly, but there are many other topics that might be of interest to you. You can find them archived there for you. For now, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. So now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.